I had a bad feeling about my husband's best friend. Now I know why. He was the man of my dreams. He took me on date nights, made sure I felt loved, and bought me amazing gifts. I never had any issues with him until he introduced his best friend, Laura. We argued because he didn't tell me about her at all during our whole relationship. He had been sneaking out to see her and hanging out with her at parties when I was sleeping, believing that he was working overtime. I was hurt by this, and I immediately went to infidelity. But I found all of their texts to be platonic after he willingly told me to look. I thought she was nice at first because she spoke politely and talked about how lucky I was to have him. Then everything changed when I was invited to a function for her mother's anniversary. Apparently, they had been friends since elementary school, so I was okay with it. I walked into the house with my husband, and she ran to him and immediately wrapped her whole body around his arms and dragged him off to the garden. He didn't even come to get me after being dragged away, so I went to the kitchen to ask for a drink, where I was greeted by Laura's mother. The whole gathering was mainly nothing special until dinner. I sat down next to my husband, and Laura walked up to me and asked me to move. I asked why, since the only other spot available was next to her uncle. Laura replied to the question, "Because I want to sit next to him." I turned to my husband, who just nodded and told me to move as well, saying that I was being childish for making a scene. At this point, I genuinely felt my blood boiling. I stood up and told my husband that I felt uncomfortable and that I needed to go to the bathroom, so I left the table, doing breathing exercises to try to calm down. I ended up messaging my brother from the bathroom, and he said I was being jealous and was overreacting. I agreed and went back to the table to sit next to Laura's mother. They were laughing the whole time, and it seemed like everything he said was funny to her. She kept rubbing his back, touching his arms, and saying how strong he had gotten. The breaking point to all of this was when I put a bit of meat onto my plate, and she said, "Are you really going to eat all of that?" I froze in embarrassment while she and my husband laughed. Her mother stood up for me, saying that it was inappropriate and to treat guests with respect, but she ignored it. I stood up from my chair and walked out the front door to call my dad. I told him to pick me up and that I'd explain in the car. When I got in the car, I broke down and told him everything. He said that I was most likely overreacting, but he agreed that the situation was very uncomfortable. I thanked him and went back to our house. While I was getting comfortable, my phone was flooded with messages from Laura and my husband. To my horror, my husband said that I ruined the whole dinner and that he was going to stay there for the night. I then read what Laura said, saying I had ruined her night because of my pygmy behavior. After doing research on that word, it filled me with anger. My husband came home from Laura's at 5 p.m. I immediately told him that leaving me to stay at another woman's house was disgusting. He started shouting that I was overreacting and needed to go to counseling for my jealousy issues. For about a month, my husband became more distant and cold. I could feel that our argument wedged a gap in our marriage until I got a message from Laura this morning with a positive pregnancy result and a threat saying we should get divorced because it's my husband's child. I don't know what to do. I feel like I failed as a wife.